biggest problem I have with trying a new setup is trying to get the old one working again then. Which was the thing this morning. So we're here, your chat, gonna crochet a little bit. But I did the Pokemon Nuzlocke on Wednesday, I think. Which I ran off of Streamlabs on my laptop. Right now we're on Prism Live Studio on my our dedicated gaming PC, so to speak. So I had to switch the layouts up, replug things in, reorganize labels, and then even after that, my capture wasn't quite working, so there was a bit of messing around to make sure things worked. So a little bit of a weird start to today's thing. Apologies on that. Where'd my stuffing go? So just bear with me this morning as I try and get things to work. When I finish stuffing up my Reptar I was working on, which again I will show when it's finished. Right now it doesn't really matter. And you can't see it anyway because it's the same color as the green screen. So right now, all you can see right now is his little red eyes. I was working on this big boy yesterday, and so I'm like, I'm going to finish this up, and then I got a potion bottle order I need to start working on. I got from our order, as an order from Animate. Got 2 customs, one of which should be going out today. We tried to put it out yesterday, but we forgot it was a holiday, so all the post offices were closed. I think it was the day of mourning. I think it's for my mom said it was for President Carter, I think. I saw it on the calendar, I just didn't know what it was about. He's gonna be a cute little chicken nugget. Or dino nugget, I guess. Okay, stuff him up, and I think I just got like 2 more rows. You're gonna be a cute little Reptar when you're done. Anyway, so I imagine we're gonna be here very long. I do have a D&D session later on today. But I figured I didn't stream yesterday just because it was a long day. We're supposed to have a big frost storm in this area in a little bit. So we're supposed to have a big frost storm in a bit, so which that means everyone's going to the stores to stock up on everything imaginable. Like, you know, like we're about to be snowed in a blizzard, but people down here just panic very quickly at the thought of inclement weather, which I think is funny. Except for when, you know, we're trying just to pick up something from Costco. And everyone and their brother is here trying to get water or whatever. Like, there's a chance of snow, mind you. Not a absolute certainty. Come on, where's my yarn? Thank you. A chance of snow. And people are acting like it's going to be the apocalypse as usual. Although I've seen worse reactions. We definitely have had far worse reactions in years past, so it's not the worst thing, but just meant that it took us a while to get home. It was just, and also I kind of wish it would snow because it's been so freezing this week. But the worst thing is when it's cold, but there's like no precipitation to like get out of it. So it's like, if it's going to be this cold, at least get a snow day so we can get like a day or 2 off of work. But I'm like, no, it's just going to be very cold with absolutely no precipitation. We did have some rain on Monday, which was the only day I worked in the preschool this week. So of course that was nice, and then when you know, it stops raining as soon as we're done with carpool. Only when it's convenient. But it just was so cold yesterday. Also, the place where I nanny, they have the air conditioning up pretty high, so I usually have to wear a sweatshirt there anyway. So then going from that and then to the actual cold, I was very cold yesterday. We didn't get home until probably like 5. Just because my ride had to deal with some stuff, and that's fine because, you know, that's what it is. I don't drive. It's an anxiety thing, which means I get rides from other people, so that's why I'm not ever like, you know, too concerned about how quickly they get there because they are doing it out of the kindness of their heart, essentially. Or obligation, as my brother does in the morning. My mom said she says go do it, and he has to, but I make him breakfast sandwiches. I try and be a good passenger. But the point is that we got home and I was just like so cold because I only had a sweatshirt on. Because I didn't intend to be out for very long, so I didn't take a heavy coat. And I only had a sweatshirt on, so I was cold. My hands were freezing. Then I just took like an hour-long shower because I was, again, freezing. So I enjoyed the warmth for a while, and then after that, it was only 8 o'clock. I could have streamed, but I was just like tired. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I did my dailies, and then I went to bed early. Because I was tired. And sometimes, isn't it crazy that, like, as a kid, you don't want to take naps, so then as an adult, the luxury is, I'm going to go to bed before 10 o'clock tonight. Isn't that funny how that works? How suddenly that becomes a luxury to you. You're looking pretty cute, little buddy. Definitely working up a bit smaller than I predicted, but I guess he'll just be a baby Reptar, and then This is a 5-weight yarn. Even if I'm using a larger hook size, this is a 5-weight yarn, which will make up significantly different than a 6-weight one. Especially comparing... It's just funny that this is the big twist 5-weight, and I would say this is barely thicker than their 4-weight yarn. You can't see it because, again, it's the same color as my green screen behind us, so you can't see it, but you can tell I am holding something. It is literally green screen, green. Unintentional, but I think it's funny. But it's funny, this particular yarn, called their Posh, a lot of people speak very well of it, and it does work pretty well. It's just, it's barely, if anything, thicker than the 4-weight yarn they have. So this is kind of funny, considering that their 6-weight yarn, the Big Twist Plush, is actually significantly plush. Like, you know, decreases all around. You know, because, like, their Big Twist Plush is like as thick as Burnett Blanket, which is the thickest 6-weight yarn I've worked with so far. Obviously, there's thicker if you go into 7 jumbo weight yarns, but Burnett is like the thickest. Because, like, the 6 for, like, Premier is like half the weight. So, like, even though they're both 6-weight yarns, you can't really use them together. I also haven't been crocheting a lot, because honestly, I crocheted so much for the Animate Con that I just was like, I want to do something else for a few days. So that's why I'm like, but that's why I'm also on here, so I can actually work on some of my orders. I'm going to start a potion bottle, which I'm working for someone that we got a commission while we were at Animate. I got another commission that I need to make at some point, but it's for something that I like don't even have a pattern for yet, so I'll have to look into that. See what I can do about it. No, and I rushed. That's the only thing that, unsurprisingly, that was with my sister, was running the booth and I wasn't there. I don't like taking commissions for things I've not made yet, because I don't feel that confident in my skills. Even though I probably could. Or, like, I guess I don't take commissions like that don't have, like, 6-month time. Like, processing time. So I want to have time to, like, figure it out and make it and not feel stressed about it. And we gotta sew this up. Just a little dino nugget here. I will say the yarn's not bad. I've never used this kind before. It's also a cloak sort of day, so I got a cloak on right now. It's one my grandma made for me, actually. It arguably is a poncho. Cloaks are longer. They typically have the sleeves in the fold, too. I have a proper cloak somewhere, but I want to get, like, a real nice, good, like, weather-resistant cloak would be nice. I wanted to get one of those when we were in London, because that seemed like the fitting place to get it, but didn't happen. Also because when you're overseas, it's always dependent on what you can bring back on the plane. Okay, get my needle out, sew this up. Oh, I forgot to put out my notification. I should go, let me get my needle out, and then I'm going to put my notification. I'm just realizing now I didn't put a notification out for the stream. Oops. See, I'm just kind of doing this very off the cuff this morning. But we're just doing this to get a little work done. I'm going to finish up the body of this guy, and then I'm going to start on my potion bottle I have in my lap. I have my other yarn. because I have talked to some other people, like people I interact with in person, um, and been like, "Hey, does your notifications work?" And Twitch has this weird thing where you have to like go and like personally cultivate your notifications so you get the like when people go live. And like, why would you bother following them otherwise? It doesn't automatically tell you. You follow someone on YouTube, they don't even let you know. Let me respond back. Like I said, I'm looking at my messages for I'm looking at my messages on our thing because like I said, I have D&D tonight, but we also have this big winter storm supposedly coming in. North Carolina, the weather's prediction isn't necessarily bad, but you learn to kind of take any of those with a large grain of salt, because sometimes they'll be like, it's going to be horrible tomorrow, and then you'll be like, nothing will happen, and they'll be like, oh, don't worry, it's just going to be a light icing, then we'll have like 2 inches of snow the next morning. So, we're in the South, so I'm not too upset that they aren't great at predicting snow, because it's not something they exactly have to deal with very often. First few years we lived here, it was hilarious, because they had never had to deal with snow, and then, like, the first 2 years we were here, we had legendary snowfall, of 5 or 6 inches, and the entire state pretty much shut down and went into a state of emergency, because every county had 2 plows and maybe a bag of sand. And they did not have the infrastructure that we are used to in the north to deal with ice and snow. Ice and snow is bad wherever you go, but the states having the infrastructure to deal with it changes depending on how far north or south you go. So I'm just now North Carolina is a bit better. They did invest in the infrastructure so they can deal with ice and snow a little bit better. But it's still funny every time that they're like, it's going to be horrible, and then half the time it isn't, or they'll be like, oh, don't worry about it, just go to school, and we'll get freezing sleet or something like that, and the roads are really dangerous. So yeah, some people are like, I'm going to be online or not online. I personally, I don't know how many people here who may be listening right now are into D&D. I run a campaign. It's kind of because I'm an anxious soul and a bit, so I need, the way I deal with this, severe research and a lot of, stuff like that. So actually, half the time, it is more calming for me to be the dungeon master and have to deal with 100 different variables, but know I have control over all those variables at any given time, than being a player sometimes. And, just because I've had experiences with not the best dungeon masters in the past, or ones that maybe just were running games that I wasn't interested in, some people run D&D for, combat, or, intense storytelling, the kind that wrenches your heart out instead of, fun fantasy times. So it does kind of just vary a bit, but I guess I'm less anxious when I feel like I have all the things in my control. So that's, I just work better, I think, half the time as a DM. So my campaign we're doing tonight, players are going to be fighting a dragon, which is exciting. It's one that they've run into, they're all level 12 or so. They're pretty powerful at this point. They can definitely take a dragon on at this point. They have already fought and killed one, with help, mind you, but they have. It was actually an ambush by 4, and they just killed the one, and then I had the others retreat, because dragons are intelligent. I don't think that they should ever be creatures that fight to the death unless they are really determined to kill a party. They've lived for hundreds, if not thousands of years most of the time, so you're kind of like, well, this thing's very intelligent, why would it stay and potentially lose its life and its horde? in its territory. Like, a dragon survives that long from not being stupid. So, that's how I play dragons. Some people play them as the people who I've talked to the other people about this before, like other D&D players. Some people, and mostly inexperienced DMs, who don't know what they're doing. Okay, you can't really see it, but if you see the little area, you can kind of tell the area based on where the green screen's saying at. This is my little chicken nugget dinosaur buddy here. So we're going to put him off to the side. I might make his limbs in a little bit, but I want to get started on this potion bottle first, because that is something I need to do for a commission. So we're going to start with that. He requested a green and purple, green and blue thing. So you're not going to be able to see one of the colors, because again, it's that green screen green, but the other one's this blue color. So I'm going to be starting with blue, and then just switching my color off everything so often. I actually do already have a potion ball that is that color of green. Also, my dad got me this little Christmas stitch, so he's hanging out with me today. Always adding one more thing to around me, like I showed before. We have Jess Skellington. We got Christmas Stitch over here. They're my buddies, just hanging out. Where'd my other dude go? I used to have another guy over here, but he went missing, I think. Or he might have moved. Some stuff moved around the other day. Okay, let's just put you over here then, I guess. That's my dinosaur buddy, my soft little dinosaur buddy. Put you down there instead. Have to stack everything up properly here. Put my little Christmas Stitch over there. He's my squishy stress ball. He doesn't really stand up because his head's so huge, but put him over there. Anyway, so I'm gonna get started on working on this potion bottle. I'm also just going to jump on my phone randomly to see how messaging's going. I have another player who's getting ready to go out. She just got school and stuff. I'm eating a brownie. I love cosmic brownies. They're definitely not good for you, but it's a nostalgic kid food. I think everyone has that one like food they ate as a kid that they know is not good and doesn't really taste as good as they remember, but you just are like, oh, I remember eating that as a kid, and it was such a big important thing to me back then. That's kind of how it just goes. Alright, let me see here. Also, when I just went and bought a lot of purple yarn from Hobby Lobby from Toucan. There's this one purple color that comes from the Toucan Hobby line that for some reason I cannot find any other purple that comes close to it. It's like the perfect Bonnie color. I've been using it for all my little Bonnies, so I started making half of one, ran out, and then like every other purple I've bought is not even being close to the same color of purple I find for this one, so I just bought like 4 skeins of it. I don't need that much right now, but I keep running out of purple, so I'm kind of like, I'm just going to buy in bulk, put it off to the side somewhere, and that way I know when I go and make one, because usually when I make any sort of Freddy plush, it usually takes about a little over half a skein. So it means the first time I make it, I'll be fine, but then the second time I make it, I'll usually just need like this much more in order to finish it, and that's when I'll run out. So if I'm making like a withered or something, it's not bad, but if I'm trying to make a full body one like I was doing with that Bonnie, then I'll run out. Okay, I need to get my potion bottle pattern up. There we go. I do think I have a couple of corks laying around, so I don't have to make that part nice. But, put you over there. Prop my feet up. Like, I got slippers, I got cloaks, I was under 4 blankets last night. Like, it's just getting cold around here, and I'm just like, you know, you're never sure when you're ready to take out the really thick fleecy jammies and stuff like that. Because, you know, like, is it really getting that cold yet? And I always, like, kind of wait out on that for as long as I can, and then they're like, nope, it is getting that cold now. The only thing about having a cloak on that is that it means every time I move, as opposed to wearing a sweatshirt, every time I move, it will go and jostle everything. I'm wearing on my lap. I tend to hold a lot of things on my lap. So that is a little awkward because this is a very large skein. It's one of the first colors I bought, so it means that I didn't like... I bought it just for the idea of like, oh, I'm just trying to cover the basic colors. And later on being like, I reasonably did not need this large of a skein, but you know, figure it out. Put you over here for now. My table on the side also, so usually a little bit more organized than this, but having a really large skein means that things are a little disorderly. Okay. So I'm thinking about at least getting the first couple rows or so of this potion ball started, at least until a point where I can switch out what I'm doing here. So, because honestly, like my, I think this is the bicep, tricep, or maybe this is this should be the bicep, I think, is the one on the top. Those have been sore on me lately because, I did a lot of crocheting, so I kind of stressed those muscles by crocheting so much for so long. Oh, this is my 5 hook. Oops. I need my 4. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. There's my 4 hook. Okay, and let me finish this first row, and then I'm gonna probably be jumping a little bit between chatting and crocheting and checking my Discord messages because I got a campaign tonight. But that is the ADHD brain experience, isn't it? Just jumping between task and task, because scientifically proven we can't like truly focus on one task at a time. But sometimes your brain can rapidly switch between tasks. The funny thing about that, though, is that, like, for instance, an autistic brain can usually have a lot of difficulty switching between tasks. But an ADHD brain, like, really craves doing that. So it's kind of like sometimes, again, I feel like I have 2 different, like, little creatures in my head that just want different things. And are just fighting over who gets the steering wheel. So on one hand, it makes me feel just like I'm spinning. On the other hand, it's like I crave the constant stimulation. So my brain is a weird place sometimes. Anyway, someone just messaged me. I was trying to keep up with, like, the storm news. My one character, like I said, we have this one character in my campaign her player's leaving for a little while because she has, like, her senior year of college, so she's not going to have as much time to play, so she's going into more of a temporary, like, guest star appearance sort of thing in our group until she's done. Which is fair, we play this game for fun, so obviously it should override important life things. But, like, so the thing is we're figuring out what to do with her character. And so, I'm like, there's a lot of ways you can do this. I mean, I can have characters just pop off into the ether, but I'm like, I also like to give some sort of sense of closure when a character leaves, at least even if temporarily. So I was like, well, we're going to fight a dragon, you could potentially do a heroic sacrifice. And she's like, well, when you said heroic sacrifice, what did you mean? And I'm like, I'm more curious to figure out what you think I mean, honestly, because I'm not sure how many different ways you can interpret the words heroic sacrifice. Anyway, let me respond to this. So lately I've also been having this issue with autocorrect where, like, you ever had where autocorrect is, like, you know, it's like AI run now, so it learns based on things that you, like, constantly misspell. My issue is that I often miss the I and the U are next to each other on the keyboard. So often when I'm spelling the word like, it will spell the word Luke instead. And it will autocorrect to Luke now. I'm like, no, when I type like the right way. And, like, I'll type the word like, and it's like, did you mean Luke? I'm like, no, I meant like. If I meant Luke, I would have capitalized it, you know? I like how autocorrect will sometimes go and be like, how about this other word that is not a word, but you tend to type often? I'm like, no, that's just because I keep making the same mistake. That's not because I want to type that word over and over again. Anyway, so let me, I wrote enough there, and I'll wait for my person to respond. And let me do another. Pretty sure I just increased the round. Yeah. One, two, three, four, five, six. It's also a Friday. So I don't expect a ton of people here at this time of day. But, you know, that's why this is just our quiet and chill and crochet stream. I'll pretty much just work on my stuff, unless someone has anything in particular they want to chat about. This is my kind of temporary thing I'm doing right now. As for, like, when we'll pick up the Nuzlocke again, I imagine Saturday is a maybe. Like I said, I have D&D tonight, so it definitely won't be this evening. I don't tend to do things on Sundays, just because I need some day to break, and I work on Mondays, so usually I don't want to do anything major on Sundays, because I want to rest. But, if not then at the very least, there's a good potential for Monday. We got some good progress on the Nuzlocke, too, for those who missed it. The recording is up for now on Twitch, and it will be up on our YouTube soon. The thing is, when I use Streamlabs, you need to have a paid version in order to stream to multiple platforms. So rather than paying $16 a month or whatever it is, I'm just, I'll just download the recording, I'll upload it onto YouTube. Because all of our recordings of past live streams are all stored on our YouTube channel, which is Cozy Gamers by the same name. Single increase. Alright. I also have to remember how this one's different than my other one, because, like, I forget sometimes that when I'm doing the cork, I work in half double crochets, and this one just works in single crochets, and so. I have to remember which ones I'm doing. So Nuzlocke went pretty well. We already have one death, but that honestly is not surprising. I got just sniped by one of my rivals, and they happened to hit me while my Pokemon were in low HP, so it was like, who are you gonna sacrifice? And I didn't want my starter to die, so my first caught Pokemon died, which was a Patrat. And to be fair, most of the normal types, early game normal types, are not very good. Patrat especially is not. I really would have preferred a Lillipup. I'm hoping I can find a Lillipup in the later routes, because Lillipup is actually a solid normal type for Nuzlocke runs. I remember the last time I tried to do a white Nuzlocke run, my starter died really early on, just from an unlucky bide attack. And so my starter essentially became my Lillipup Menchie, I think his name was. And he was actually kind of like my starter, because he didn't make it all the way to Statland. It was just the thing that I knew could take, like, the best hits. Because, most of my other Pokemon died, again, from random bides or critical hits. This part that sucks about, I don't know if critical hits hit harder in Unova or not, but I do know they hit differently depending which game you're playing, because sometimes the multipliers are different. The way I'm going to do this, because this person asked for stripes, so the way I'm going to do this is that there's a, essentially a kind of little concave cup in the bottom of a potion bottle to make sure that it sits flat. So I'm going to stay blue until I get to where that back loop is. We should do back loop stitches in order to essentially give it that curved bottom so it stands upright. So I'm going to stay blue until I get to that back loop section, then I'll switch over to green. Now I'm thinking maybe every 2 rows or so, I'll switch in order to give some distinctive stripes. I've not done something like this before, so, but it shouldn't be hard because it's not a hard pattern. So I'm like, hypothetically, it shouldn't be an issue. And that's kind of like the fun thing about doing crochet stuff is, like, you find a pattern, and while it's fun to follow a pattern, I kind of like it that after you know how the pattern works is being able to go and, change it a little bit. It's kind of the same thing with art and drawing, too. It's like, you can learn principles, and you can learn basics, and gestures, and tools, and stuff like that. But, it's how you then use those tools to make your own things that is the artistic part of it. And that's, I think, the thing that a lot of people struggle with, because I have met a few people, especially in recent years, who are definitely ones that you're like, I think everyone can do art if they put their mind to it. There are definitely some where I'm just like, yep, your brain is a math brain. Your brain is not built to tell what colors look good together or not. Like, they look at something and be like, I don't see what's wrong here, and I look at it and be like, oh, where do I begin on how many things are wrong here? But it's kind of like, it's also, though, I've said in the past, again, I don't do a ton of art now just because I'm pretty busy. So I'm jumping between, 3 different part-time jobs, and one of which is my, business we're trying to set up, and I'm trying to be a streamer, and I'm trying to do childcare, and, eventually I'm trying to do, schooling and get a graduate degree, at the very least be an accomplishment or something of my life. I honestly just want to learn more about writing. Maybe make a novel. I just don't know what stories I have to tell that I really feel passionate about to continue with, So I've never written anything more than short stories before. So I've had ideas. 3. But, yeah, I remember hearing, when I used to doodle on Post-it notes and stuff. And, especially when I used to work my express lane job. Like, when I didn't have anything to do, I would doodle on it, because it was my way of, keeping my brain active. Shifts go by so much slower when you don't have anything to do. That's why I like the express lane job, which is a personal shopper, for the record. You go and you shop people's groceries for them, and then they pick it up. But I actually really liked that job, even though it was very busy and a little hectic, is because it meant I was always moving, and I always had a new task for my brain. So I always had something new to work on. and, you know, being able to find things, find it efficiently, pack it well. You know, just the typical service things, you know. I really enjoyed that part of the job, but when I wasn't, I would doodle on Post-it notes. People be like, wow, you draw really well. I'm like, actually, not really. I'm like, the bigger thing is, I think, is that when, like, regardless of whether you consider yourself an artist or not, is people, if you ever draw something, people will always be like, wow, I wish I could draw. And I'll be like, well, I mean, if you wanted to, it really takes is some practice. And it's also a matter of how well do you want to draw. So, like, a lot of people will be like, oh, I can only draw stick figures. I'm like, yeah, everyone starts there. Look at preschoolers' drawings, you know, they think that's really great for their age level. It's just a matter of practice. So you want to get better at something, it's just, you know, it's like no one, it's, the thing I think is funny about people being like, oh, I'm artistic, or you're artistic, or, oh, I can't do that, I'm not artistic, or I can only draw stick figures, and I just remember always growing up thinking about it and being like, that was always a strange thought to me, you know. And the beauty of a late diagnosis is sometimes you can just go back and analyze your brain and be like, man, the things that I thought that honestly were really big indicators at the time. But I always used to think it's strange when people would say like, oh, you're so good at that, or you're such a good artist, or I wish I could draw like you. And I, first of all, never thought I was great. A lot of people will tell me I'm great, and it's very difficult for me to take a compliment. I'm not sure why. I think there's probably some rooted psychological reason behind that, but I find it very difficult to take a compliment. And not in, like, in a bad way, it's just, like, I never feel deserving of it. Because sometimes I will sit back and make something, sometimes, and I'll just sit there and be like, people will tell me it's great and it's amazing, and I'm just like, and I won't be proud of it, you know? Like, sometimes I do make things, and I am proud of it. Like, when I'm making some of my, like, Freddies, I'll be proud of them, but I'll go back and they'll be like, you're such a great writer, and I'll be like, every once in a while I'll find something that I'm really proud of, but then there'll be also other times I'll be like, I've written so much, and I can't go and, if someone said, what's your best piece of writing? Show it to me. I wouldn't be able to pick one out. Like, I don't know if there's anything that I would think like, oh, hey, DZ, what's up? Just chatting and crocheting as usual. I'm making a potion bottle. You can see behind my microphone. If you see the glowy thing in the side corner, that's my little Reptar. He's green screen color, though, so he's going to look a little weird. But, so that was 3, so I need to be doing the back loops now. But I always think it's just fascinating that, like, a lot of people will go and be like, I can't draw, or I can only draw stick figures, and, you know, like, I could never do what you can do, you're so artistic. And my thought was always, first of all, I would always deny it, because I can't take a compliment. Just psychologically, there's something with me that I find it very difficult to find pride in my work sometimes. Sometimes I'm not, but sometimes I do. And my thought was always immediately, like, you could be a good artist if you tried. You know, like, if you just practiced and worked at it, you might not be a renowned artist. You might not, you know, become, like, as great as someone who's doing, like, artworks on DeviantArt or something like that, but you could get better. You could get somewhere where you feel better about it, because I'm like, I always thought it was funny when people say, like, I can only do stick figures. I'm like, well, you haven't practiced much. It's like, to me, in my mind, it was always like someone saying, like, if it would be the same as if someone went, picked up a trumpet, blew air into it, and then complained that they couldn't play a note. Or complained that they couldn't make a song. Like, no, yeah, well, obviously, but no one goes to an instrument set and says, you know, like, to an instrumentalist and be like, oh man, I wish I could do that. You know, like, you don't go to an instrument and just pick it up and inspect mastery as soon as you pick it up. But it's funny how many people look at that way with art. Like, especially the traditional kind, you know? How many people go and think and wonder, why can't I draw? And I'm like, well, because you haven't practiced the skill, you know? Same reason why I can't pick up a trumpet and suddenly play a scale. If I wanted that skill, I would have to learn and practice it. That's the nature of most skills. Now, granted, I do think there's some people, I've heard different opinions on the matter, on, like, the matter of talent, of, you know, like, are you born with talent? Do you have a natural leaning towards certain things? And I do believe that's true to some extent. I've heard people say that they don't like that, like, you know, some inspirational writers or artists say, like, talent doesn't exist. It's just perseverance in learning. I'm like, well, I think talent does to an extent exist. Because we all have different brains. So, like, you know, there are some things that my brain just doesn't like to do. So it won't do. But there's other things that, like, you know, I picked up crocheting. I haven't even been doing it for a year yet. I think right now I'm at 8 months since I first started crocheting. But I've been doing stuff that people like, Be like, wow, you look like you've been doing this for years. I'm like, well, that's just my brain picked the skill up pretty well. Does that mean I'm, does that make me talented or whatever? I also took time to learn it, and, like, I'm pretty persistent with practicing it, obviously, but, like, where's talent, where's hard work? It's kind of the nature versus nurture idea. And I just find it funny that's the way, and to be fair, I feel this way about a lot of arts. Where people would be like, wow, that's amazing. I'm like, well, yeah, it's time and, practice and work, but also it is talent to some degree. That's what means that you can tell the same story 15 different ways. Is that everyone's perspective, everyone's style, everyone's, like, inner thoughts color a story differently. So that's why you can have 15 versions of Cinderella, but they can all be different stories at the end of the day. That's the truly fascinating things about stories. I think I will switch colors now, but let me check. As I said before, we got D&D tonight, so I'm checking my messages. Because there is some fear. There is some fear about an ice storm tonight. We are playing in the evening around 6. So, did my camera freeze? Okay, give me a second. Looks like my camera froze. I don't know if you can still hear me or not, but let me check my camera for a minute. Alright, I think it's back. Again, this is the problem with streaming by yourself, is that my computer is like 5 feet away from me. Did it freeze again? I don't know why it's doing this right now. Alright, let me check. Let me see what's causing my computer to slow down so much right now. I swear, my brother's doing something. It looks frozen on my end, yeah. Dang it. It was just working a second ago. I don't know what's making my computer run this slow this morning. Give me a second. Okay, can you hear the audio now? I tried to move it around. I moved my my camera and my mic around because sometimes these USB ports are a little finicky. Alright, so audio's working, things. If it freezes again, I'll just go to the top corner one so it's not me being frozen in the middle of the stream and we'll just have to go solely audio, but if it freezes again, I'll just go on to the other one. I'll go to the one that has the tiny camera on the top screen. So at the very least you can look at the background and hear my audio, but yeah, this is when it's really helpful to have an extra set of hands. Because then you can sit there, and the person in the back can fix it. Instead of me being like, hey, does anyone see it? I know I'm not on the screen right now. Yeah. I guess as long as I was working, then that's the most important thing. Most of the people I know who are watching me are watching for the audio anyway, not the video. Because otherwise it's just me in a, you know, some sort of cozy outfit. Not doing a whole lot. But, where is my green? I do not remember which end of this I was using. This. Yeah, that's fine. I guess we'll just pull from this end. Anyway, so, gosh, what even was I talking about? Who knows? Point being, we got a nice storm tonight. I'm trying to keep an eye on my Discord messages, so I'll be going between that and crocheting itself. Any topics you wish to speak about, though, feel free to add, and I will comment in the chat. But anyway, I think I was talking about art or something. I'm thinking about that just because, like, I need to do another class for my degree. I'm working towards. And I had the option of starting in January. I'm like, I'm actually kind of glad I chose to do the quarter that's in February because I'm honestly kind of tired right now. That con really took it out of me. So let me go. Someone sent a meme. Okay, let's see. Alright. So anyway, back to what I was doing. 2 would increase than 4. Okay. So yeah, I'm making this, like I said before, I'm making potion bottle with stripes. So we're gonna try this. I've never done that before, but I'm kind of curious. I'm imagining it's not gonna be very hard. I've used, like, most of the things that have multicolor in it is, like, you know, I use, variegated yarn that just automatically stripes itself. So this just means I'll have more ends at the end of it, but hopefully that won't be a big issue. I've never done that for a potion bottle yet, like actually switching the yarns. So we'll see how it goes. I can't imagine it'll be too much of an issue. My biggest thing, the reason why I work with the thicker weight yarns as opposed to the thinner 4-weight yarns, is purely just because they fray. Regular yarn, as most people are probably familiar with, is like twisted up fibers. And so naturally, as you work with it, it can sometimes untwist, or in my case, my hook will catch like part of the fiber, but not the entire fiber. Which is sometimes a little annoying, because it means then, like, you know, you'll try and pull the yarn through, but you only grabbed half the yarn, and there's like some other random fibers just sticking out there. I prefer that even though the other yarn sheds, it doesn't do that. Shedding is annoying in its own way, but, you know, the fraying of the actual yarn, I think, annoys me a little bit more. So I don't work with 4 yarn as much, just because it's a bit stiffer, a little less forgiving, I think. But it does make for good potion bottles. That's really the only thing I use 4-weight yarn for right now. And, like, you know, detailing work on larger plushies, like the back spikes I did for my Godzilla. Which turned out really well. I'm glad someone bought that guy. I'm glad I have good enough products that people are willing to go with that and be like, yes, I want that, regardless of the price tag. Because when you're at a con, you know, like, you're usually competing with people who have, I wouldn't say competing, but just the other products there. Are people who have, like, you know, posters and standees and acrylic charms and other, you know, stuff like that. The smaller things that usually are not going to run you more than like $25. And I got, like, you know, a lot of my things, like, I don't think anything I have sell. My potion bottles right now I'm selling for $25, but everything else I have I sell for more than that because, you know, labor. I really only price them based on how much I think they're worth. Some people will go in and price in, like, okay, it took me this many hours to make, plus this much amount of yarn, and I'm just like, well, I could charge you on the amount of yarn, but I also have to measure how much yarn I actually used in order to make it in the first place. And that sounds like too much effort. So, I don't, like, some people actually will measure, like, okay, here's how much the skein weighed before I made the thing, and here's how much it weighs afterwards, so therefore I used this many grams of yarn. It took me several hours to do it. I'm like, no, I'm like, okay, based on how big it is and the level of complexity, I give it a price, and that's essentially how I go. And I recently did up my prices for this last con because I realized that they honestly were too low. And honestly, even now they're probably too low. Let's see, hope I did this right. I might be one stitch off, but that's fine. I think I'm doing this right. Okay, well, if I don't have the right amount in the next row, I'll worry about the next row. But, means most of my things, you know, sell for like $35 stuff. Or like, you know, my Godzilla I sold for $60, which honestly was probably even still lowballing it at that point, you know. Because it's a large thing. It took a significant amount of effort. And I just feel like I lowball myself a lot of the time. But, you know, it's hard to price your artwork. Madeline, you know, my business partner / sister, does the same thing a lot of the time, where she wants to just, because she's nice and she just appreciates other fans, and she sometimes just wants to give things away, and I'm like, that's disrespectful to ourselves and to our customers. That's why I told her, like, whenever someone tries to buy something, you don't cut them a discount. Now, you might cut them a deal if they're unsure of something, or maybe they want to buy multiple things, and you're just like, oh, well, we talked for, like, a while, and, you know, like, so I gave this person an extra sticker or something like that. I'm like, she'll sometimes want to be like, oh, well, you know, you did this, so you can get, like, you know, like, she'll be like, oh, you bought 2 of them, well, you know, or she'll be like, oh, you really like this one? I can take $10 off the price. I'm like, well, you shouldn't do that because it's disservice to you. And as I told her at the time, I was like, if the person picked it up and pulled out the credit card and the price tag says $35, clearly they are ready and willing to spend $35 on it. Now, if they went and bought 3 of your things and they were all $35, and you decide to say, like, you know what, just you already bought one for $35. There's this other one right here for you're buying 2 more for $35. I'll give them both to you for $60. Sure, that's just a discount, you know, and that might just be because you've already bought something from me, so let me cut you a deal here. Or sometimes, like, I like it whenever there was this one person at the con who I bought some posters from. And they were nice. We went and talked about Star Rail for a little while, so that was fun. Always love doing that. And so I bought some posters from her. And then I decided to buy some keychains. Like, I'll have to show them on stream. They're like the funniest little things. We bought these. They were essentially are you familiar at all with body pillows? Like, I think most everyone's familiar with body pillows, at least for the meme. The idea of, like, you have a character, you print it on a pillow that's like body length, and then you know can lay on it or do whatever things that you do with it. The internet likes to put several, like, not safe for work sort of things that people do with body pillows. But so this table had these mini body pillows that were about yay big. I'm trying to show around it, you know. And they were on keychains. So they were like these little mini portable body pillows. And I thought that was funny, first of all. But then second of all, I was like, see, this is the issue with 4-weight yarn. Sometimes I pull up fibers that I don't intend to pull up, and I'm just like, nah, my thing's tangled. I just prefer working with different weight yarn. But then again, I guess if you're someone who starts with, a lot of crocheters start with, like, you know, the basic pot holder or flower or scarf. So they're used to working with 4-weight yarn. I started working with a harder weight yarn because apparently working with thicker weight yarn with bigger hooks is actually supposed to be harder, but I started that way, so going down is actually the harder thing for me. And even then, I wouldn't say it's harder. I think it's a little more time consuming. I have a lot of tension in my hands, so working with smaller yarn means that my hands are a little tighter. But, so she had these mini body pillows, which I just thought were the funniest thing. So I had, like, one side was, like, the character in their normal outfit, and then the other side was them in, like, a damaged art outfit sort of thing, which I think is funny. It reminds me kind of like how, like, they'll show art in, like, gacha games where they'll have, like, character when they're in their regular outfit and then character in, like, their damaged outfit, like when they're at low HP or something. So I thought that was cool, and I showed one to my sister, and then I made a joke about it, and she's like, okay, you know what, you convinced me, go ahead and get one for me. So I was like, okay, it was like a buy, like, you know, buy two, get the third free sort of deal. And they were each 20 bucks. And so I was like, you know what, sure, why not? So I was going between it, and again, this was someone I already bought posters from. So I was just like going between. I'm like, well, I want this one. I'm probably gonna want that one. And I was like going between. I'm like, well, I love these two guys, but I only can get one. I'm not really sure. So I'm like, you know what? I'll get this. I got one. I chose one of the two options. I was like, okay, I'll get this guy, and that'll be my purchase. And then she's like, okay, here. And then she's like, and this one, just take it from me. And so then she gave me the other guy who I've been looking at, but I decided not to get. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And I'm pretty sure she did that just because we had been standing there talking about the game that we both loved. And I had already bought posters from her. I had already, you know, so she already made 2 sales off of me. And I bought more body pillows. So, like, the fact that, like, she threw an extra one in was just, it was a very kind gesture. I think just as, and I like doing that sometimes where you be like, well, we're just both, how the heck my pin end up like that? It's weird. And I just like, you know, I thought that was a nice gesture of just being like, we're both fans enjoying this thing and giggling about body pillows. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I thought it was just a funny thing. So, you know, she gave me an extra one because I had already bought 3 off of her. So she already got, you know, her deal off. And so, you know, and those probably weren't terribly hard to make either. So it was nice that she's like, here, go ahead and take an extra one. I'm like, oh, thank you. That's so nice. It's always nice when someone can go and be like, you know, and also that's the thing is that, like, of all the things I bought that weekend, I remember that's the thing is like when you're building a business, I feel the thing that you really have to build is like the customer connection. Because out of all the shops that I went to that weekend, I remember her the most because we talked, we had a little chat, she was nice, and then she gave me an extra thing. So I'll remember that, and and that's the thing, maybe I'll come back to that thing later, or maybe I'll go and tell about her store to other people. I don't remember what the name of the store was. I had the business card. I don't remember for the life of me what the name of the store was, though. So I can't say that, but maybe I'll put it somewhere later. Okay, what do I do next? Okay, 3 and 6, alright. It's also a little hard to color change with 4-weight yarn just because, again, I got a lot of tension. So, I hold my hands pretty tightly, so when you get to the smaller hook sizes and the smaller, like the thinner yarn, it's a little harder to go between the stitches for a color change. It's because my stitches are tough. Why, I won't even bother doing this. Where's my needle? That'll be easier to pull between. I think that's just kind of what some people, like a lot of people look for when they go to cons and stuff like that, is that you're just looking for that kind of, you know, I think it's a lot of the reason why, like, you know, like kids make friends on the playground sort of thing, is that you're just looking for someone who's there to enjoy the thing like you do, you know? So you're just looking for someone to build a connection with. And then be like, hey, you love this thing, I love this thing. Therefore, we have this in common. Therefore, we can connect over our shared love of this thing. That's why, even though everyone tells me, like, you should get out, it's all going on. We talk about this, that, or the other drama that's happening in a fandom, and my friends will always tell me, like, you shouldn't be online so much, or, like, you really shouldn't be in a fandom. I'm like, I don't go into fandoms just looking for drama. I do think it's funny to talk about, just because the same reason I, like, kind of psychologize everything. Because I'm kind of on the outside, narrator vibes, and I like looking at things kind of like a psychology experiment sometimes. I like sometimes just perceiving how people interact and being like, that's fascinating. Why do humans be like that? Because I'm not entirely sure I'd be a human, but why do people be like that? And so sometimes I like looking at fandoms just to like look at the culture. Like you would like I've written before in college like papers about like studying fandom cultures like you would any other culture, like a Hispanic culture or the culture of this particular religion, or like we study cultures in every way, and I think like we should be studying internet cultures more because they are fascinating because of just essentially the pace of which they spring up and stuff like that. That like cultures of social media even are crazy. And I just think it's fascinating to think about cultures in that way and be like, these cultures we study over like hundreds of years. They have like their old history and photos and things you dig up and stuff like that. But I'm like, internet cultures are fascinating because of how because they are born upon the internet. They pop up quickly and they can just as easily disappear out of existence. So it's fascinating to watch how they do. Like for instance, I remember back when I was still in the RWBY fandom, which I'm not really in right now because I don't really know where the show is at. Its company that ran it got essentially liquidated. So I believe they got picked up by someone else, but I haven't caught up with them recently. But I remember at the time, in the RWBY fandom, trying to not get my foot stuck here. I remember at the time in the RWBY fandom, the thing that kind of characterized RWBY in its early seasons was that it was directed by this one guy named Monty Oum. And he was an animator. He just wanted to make an anime, so he started out with like these just little shorts. And he had this unique way of animation where he loved doing over-the-top like anime fight scenes. And his just had a unique look and feel to them when he animated. Because the cool thing is that I remember seeing a video once of him talking about it, is he animated them to music so that like every hit, every jump, every dodge was perfectly telegraphed to like music, like pop songs or anime intros and stuff like that. Like, it was a real talent he had in that regards. And to be fair, I mean, that's why the earlier seasons are a little sketchy, is because it was clearly there for the fight scenes. The story was functional at best, And to be fair, not every anime needs to have a good story necessarily, but its characters were endearing. But it's like it was one of those things where you're like, I don't know where this is going story-wise because it's not really building anything important. But man, those animation cutscenes are cool. And to be fair, isn't that just the same story of like Voltron Legendary Defender for anyone who watched that show? It was pretty much entirely, built upon the character interactions, but the character development was something they never really quite invested into, which definitely kicked out the knees of the later seasons from what I heard. I never went past season 4. So apparently I stopped just because I was watching it as something in my apartment. I think we moved around that time, so I didn't keep watching it. Or maybe we didn't have our Netflix subscription at that time. I don't know. But point being, I stopped watching it around that point, and it was apparently a good thing because I hear that the show actually got a lot worse after that. But the problem being with that show and Voltron Legendary Defender is that it's actually very good in its early seasons. Its problem though, and you can already kind of see the cracks in the early seasons, to be honest, where they have very endearing characters, the animation's good, and it has a very kind of wholesome, like genuine heroic energy to it, which I really like. But the whole issue it kind of runs into is that while it has great character interaction, it never really develops its characters. And this becomes a bigger problem over time, because then by the time you get to season 5, 6, 7, there were 2 characters. Essentially 2 of, Voltron had a team of 5. It was a classic example of the 5-man band trope, for those who know what that is. You have the hero, who's the leader. You have the lancer, who's the second hand to the leader, and usually their personality foil. You have the heart, who's usually the caring, moral center of them, usually a girl. You have the bronze, and brawn, like brawny, like the muscle-bound person, strong guy. And then you have the brains, smart guy. And usually those 2 counter off each other. Voltron was like the quintessential example of the 5-man band trope. And most teams that you'll have in any particular media will follow this pattern. And granted, you might not have, if you have less than 5, some of these tropes might be combined together. Like, you might have the bronze and the heart be the same character. A big guy who has a big heart, you know, like something like that. Or you might have the leader and the heart be the same character. Or the lancer and the brains might be the same character. You know, like, it's, you know. It's but it's a common, kind of a trope thing to do, because these are like this, I don't know exactly where it originally comes from. I think it came from like Journey to the West or something like that. Not sure exactly where. OSP, Overly Sarcastic Productions, has a wonderful video on the 5-man band. Most of the things I know about tropes, I know myself, but I learned way more from watching their videos. See, this is my issue that you see. I don't know if you can see very well, but you see how like the yarn just kind of phrased at the end? That's the thing I don't like about 4-weight yarn. Like, I don't like that the fuzz comes off the like the 5 and 6-weight yarn. That's annoying. But the fact that, like, as soon as you cut the end of a 4-weight yarn, it immediately starts fraying like that, it makes it infinitely harder to tie up. That frustrates me. Because then it's, like, just being difficult. Anyway. So, the 5-man band is a very classic, like, trope. I would love to, honestly. Sorry, I'm responding to my Discord chat again. I told you I'd be kind of jumping in and off of there as I got different responses from my D&D group. Okay. Anyway, so 5-man band. We'll get back to Ruby in a minute, I promise. But, Voltron 5-man band has so it's kind of like the trope, it builds itself. And people innately know these tropes and these archetypes. That's why tropes are so fascinating to study, is that people, like, without even knowing, know what these things are. Like, if you looked at any big team, any large team, like probably in any crime show, in any superhero team, even you can boil down the Justice League to something like this, is that, like, that's what's so fascinating about it, is that it's like, it's something that, like, we all innately kind of recognize. 3, 4. So that's why it's so fascinating to look at, is that, like, 1, 2, 3. Okay. 4 is that, like, you kind of, it's kind of like the romantic subplot. A lot of people already know what you're doing, so you get a little bit of like freehand like movement. You don't have to work as hard to get the same effect. That being said, you also do have to still put in the work so that you're not just doing what every other trope has done up until that point. But like the framework is there, so you kind of understand it. But like Voltron did the 5-man band phenomenally in the fact that like they are literally word for word. They have the heroic leader, they have the lancer, they have like his name is literally Lance, and they have the heart, they have the brains, they have the brawn. Like it was all set there. The problem is that while they kind of shifted development around with every character in the beginning, clearly like the main heroes, there were 2 heroes, who kind of got most of the spotlight in the beginning, but they did kind of shift it around a little bit to show different characters. The problem was apparently after like season 4 or 5, they stopped shifting that character development around and started really only focusing on like 2 characters out of the main 5 bunch. And then like one of them just straight up disappeared for like 10 episodes apparently. And like then all the other characters just kind of continued to sit in their current states, never got any more development after that. So that later on when they got into like the final season, they're proclaiming like these friendships between certain characters. However, we've never seen these said friendships, and this is also kind of a problem with time skips too. But because I think they had a time skip as well in the last season. But we never got to see these relationships developed. We never saw these characters develop. So when those neglected characters showed up and had suddenly these character changes and growths and new relationships or relationships that seemed farther along than we remember them being, it felt weird and unearned because you're like, we never saw this grow into something. Like, we saw it grow into something in the early seasons, but then when they just kind of dropped off the face of the earth or just didn't get any development, they were just supporting cast for 2 to 3 seasons. When they suddenly have development in the final season, it feels strange because you're like, wait, that's kind of like just saying I won without telling me how. The journey is the thing that people really look for. Obviously, we've said before many times that a great conclusion will always trump a poor start. But while we are ultimately going for the conclusion, it's the journey that really sits with people. Like how the development built over time. Why is Avatar: The Last Airbender such an incredible show? It isn't just because it has a cool ending. If anything, the ending is actually kind of just there. But oh hey, I just finished breakfast, but I have to make a phone call about a banking issue. I'll be here lurking. Hey, I appreciate you lurking. You did miss all the tech issues when my camera kept bugging out, so good timing on that regards. Increase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Increase. Okay, just want to make sure I'm still on the right track with my accounts. One, 2, 3. So, like, the biggest thing is that just, like, we want to see characters grow and develop over time, like actual people would. And, like, that's why we like stories for the escapism, is that we can see things that we know do exist in real life, but we can see them in kind of a safe environment, where we know there can be a happy ending at the end of the day. But the issue with Voltron ran into is that, like, some of the characters who it wanted to develop, it kind of just shafted for 2 to 3 seasons, and then all of a sudden said, hey, now they matter because we need them for the final conclusion storyline. And you're just kind of like, too little, too late. You know, like, I'm not feeling it anymore. I kind of, like, if you leave a character off to, like, nowhere land... That doesn't quite look right. I still, like, I've tried, like, 3 different methods of color changing, and I still look at it and be like, that doesn't look right. My color changes still look a little jerky. That's the thing, I'm like, I've been working on crochet for a good amount of time, and I can make fairly good stuff, but I still kind of look at it and be like, that doesn't look right. Anyway. rows do I need to do here? Essentially 11. Okay. Let's do one more row here first, and then I'll switch colors. It is, it's essentially like, it means that it was kind of difficult to watch in the later seasons, because, like, a certain character, like, I was watching also a good amount of, like, Voltron, like, videos the last few days, just working things off my playlist that I want to, like, you know, watch and finally take off my playlist. I have some very long playlists that are there for me being like, I'll watch this at some point, and then I'll be like, well, this playlist is now 666 videos long. I need to start working on some of these. To be fair, that playlist is also filled of, like, you know, 1 to 3 minute videos, so if I really sat down to work on it, I probably could clear out like 100 of them in an evening, but so much to do, so little time. Anyway, so, like, the biggest issue, so, like, the one character, for instance, in this case, Lance, was the Lancer character. He is the, he's the counterpart and foil and right-hand man to the main character, who ultimately ends up being, the Red Paladin Keith, who's the hero. He doesn't start that way in Season 1. He starts actually kind of as the Lancer, with being the right hand to the leader at the time. I hate the 4-weight yarn. Try to pull a loop up, and it only grabbed some of the fibers. I hear there's some yarns you can get that, like, don't do this, but I'm like, sometimes you try and pull a loop up, and then you get only, like, some of the fibers, and it just starts untwisting itself, and you're just like, okay, this is just frustrating right now. I do hear that there are some yarns you can buy that don't do that. I just haven't looked into it, because I honestly don't use 4-weight yarn a lot. I really just use it for potion bottles right now, or for detailing work. I don't use it as my main source of, like, stuff. I also just prefer the other yarns that are just softer. You know, I'm artistic, what can I say? Looks like my camera froze again. Love that. So, I'll fix that in a minute. Just assume I look really intense and focused at the moment. I don't know what's going on with my camera today. It's just randomly freezing at times like this. So I might switch my camera view out to the one that has me just in the top corner as opposed to the center, so it doesn't look so strange that I'm just, like, sitting here and not even doing anything. But give me a minute to finish this row, because it's clearly, if it uninstalls itself, then I'll worry about it then. And I wonder if this is because I went in. This is why I'm so nervous to ever move any of the cords we have in our setup. Because the moment I do is when things go wrong. We've been working pretty well, like, day after day, in and out, without really any freezing up, any major technical difficulties. The moment I unplug things to run it off my laptop to try and do a Nuzlocke, because it's something I've been wanting to do on stream for a while now, then as soon as I go back to the regular way of doing things on a regular PC, and I pull the cords back just as they were before, somehow now I'm running into technical difficulties. That's why I'm so afraid to ever change any sort of technical aspects of our setup, because it feels so delicate all the time. Like, the moment I slightly jerk something, it's going to all fall apart. That's why I'm like, I don't know how people can do this, like, streaming thing long term, how they can do it by themselves, how anyone managed to do it years past where, like, technology wasn't as good. Because I'm just trying to do it by myself with, honestly, a very basic setup. I just have a camera and a mic in an arm, and, you know, that's pretty much it, and a capture card, which I got recently for, you know, Christmas. But, like, I think I have an incredibly basic setup, and it's honestly a mess of wires behind the screen. And I'm like, why can I not get this? I don't have the classic gamer setup with, like, you know, I'm in the gamer chair, I'm at a desk, I'm close to the screen. Because I like to be comfy and cozy. That's the name of the channel. I like to sit here in a lot of layers and on a comfortable chair that doesn't hurt my back and just hang out. But something not... And also, honestly, again, I guess you're supposed to have a tech crew. So let me go and switch my camera view at least so you can at least see the background. My camera froze up, but then at least you'll be able to see the background. So let me change that out real fast. Is the audio coming through? It should be coming through. I switched the mic around so I could still hear it, but this just kind of fits, I think. This is just, this morning's gonna be like this, I think. Whatever. Alright. Well, I'm gonna finish the row I'm on because I'm in the middle of something, but after that, we'll probably just end the stream for now. I'll complain to one of the males in my house. We'll fix it, figure it out from there. It's about noon anyway, so I should probably be cleaning up regardless, but if you can still hear me, I'll be here for another minute or two while I switch my yarn out and do another row on here, but this is, yeah, just a little frustrating. I don't know why my setup is doing this. This is why I'm always so just hesitant to try anything new. Not necessarily because fear of failure, fear that people don't want to watch it, or people won't be interested in my content. It's... okay, good. It's because I tried to switch it to another thing, and for some reason, I tried to switch it to another source to hopefully get the camera to reset itself. Sometimes when I switch to another scene, it will reset itself. And then I go and look at that source and realize, oh wait, the audio's not even working now. For some reason, it doesn't register where the mic is, so it's not picking up any audio. You didn't really miss anything. It was just me complaining for like 15 minutes. That's really all it was. Just me being frustrated. So I'm just going to work on this for a few more minutes to finish off a row or two. I try to have all my streams be about 2 hours, so we'll probably just go until I hit the 2-hour mark. But this is why I, like, you know, all the other, like, I know other YouTubers and stuff deal with this too. This is why I never want to experiment. I never want to try new formats or new things. That's why it actually took me so long to even try doing a crochet on stream as opposed to, or just streaming multiple times a week as opposed to once a week, was because I was so concerned that it would mess with our setup and it would just break and we wouldn't be able to do it anymore. Because that is just our luck. We got Murphy's Gremlin or whatever stuck in our stream setup. And even though we've gotten the better equipment and stuff, we still have about as much efficiency as we did in the days where we used a cereal box to prop up our camera. One way or the other, fate will find a way to mess with our stuff. So you just get audio, and I'm going to try and be in a more positive mood, but honestly, this frustrates me to no end. It's all because I pulled out the cords to plug them into my laptop so we could try and do a Pokemon Nuzlocke, because a lot of people seemed interested in that. And I wanted to do it. And I wanted to try something new and try a new setup and try a new program and software. And now I try going back to the other one and it knows I cheated on it with another program, and so now it's just not going to work for me anymore. Technology is so petty like that. So we're just gonna have a weird, janky kind of stream today. Enjoy the background, enjoy whatever audio I have. But, yeah. It's also kind of like the same superstition of, like, if anyone who's, like, of the older generations, of, like, how when a cartridge doesn't work, you blow on it and then put it into the slot, and it miraculously works. I do like the fact that in Sonic 3, they had a joke about that, about how, like, if you blow on it, and, like, it's not working, then you blow on it and put it in, and all of a sudden it does work. I love that they had a joke about that, because that is definitely something I still do to this day. Because it always seems to work somehow, even though they're like, no, this actually does nothing, but they're like, no, somehow it does. It's like one of those things that's like, there doesn't have to be any science behind it. It's almost just like the placebo effect of, like, you perceive it will work, and then the times where it does work, you're just like, see, told you, it worked. And stuff like that. that's how I'm oddly superstitious with technology. Because the thing is like, I went to college for, like I've said before, when I was like on my Nuzlocke one night, like I made that overlay myself. I went to school for like graphic designs. I originally went to school for game design, but then I changed it to graphic design. And then I also picked up a writing degree as well. Because writing was kind of always my backup. I knew I was kind of just innately good at it, and I enjoyed it. So, like, you know, I liked learning about it. I liked learning about literature and stuff like that. So it was, you know, fun to do that. But I do know a lot about technology. I've always been the one that can, like, you know like, since, like, the age of 8, I've known how to do, like, all the DVRs and controls and sound, and, like, I knew the basics on how to put things together because I had to in order to know how to do the TV, like, if the parents were gone. So I'd be the one that would, like, you know, figure out how to turn the TV on for the grandparents, and I still do that now, even when they come to visit us. But, like, the thing is that, like, I'm not necessarily bad with technology. Just for some reason, whenever I actually try it, like, if I'm doing it for something meaningless or just trying to turn on the TV for something like that, I can figure it out instantly. If I'm trying to do something for myself, if I'm trying to get something, like, for myself to work, something like, you know, a camera or recording or a video game or whatever like that, for some reason, everything in it will just go wrong, not work, be fussy, like, somehow, some way. I don't know if that's just like a perception of me that I just feel like that's what happens every time, or that is what's happening every time, or whatever, because, you know, perception is always a matter of something. But it's just, it's frustrating when it does that. It really is. So, what's my next thing? Where's my counter app? So I do have to keep track of how many I've done some more, which I believe is 2. Anyway. So let's see. I don't want to just moan about my technology problems, because I know I have to be careful with that. I don't become fixated on whatever that is. But I don't know what's up with our camera today, because we have, and it's like, I remember back in the days when we used essentially like the old video camera, like, you know, the one you would take to, like, family recitals and stuff like that, but it's like, it's good enough, but it's really a handheld camera that's meant to be taken around, not to, like, stream stuff off. We actually got, like, a designated web camera now. It's on a tripod and everything. And it feels like every time we upgrade some piece of our software, something else will suddenly realize that it's like, oh, well, I actually don't work anymore. Like, we go and get a better microphone, and then the camera doesn't work anymore. We go and get a better camera, and then, like, the graphics card isn't working. And then we get a better graphics card. Now the camera decides it doesn't like me anymore. And I'm just like, come on, man. What's even the point of getting the better software and the better hardware if it just doesn't work? I can do this just as well using my integrated webcam off my camera. Off my computer, I mean. Honestly, I'm actually glad I at least decided to pull the green screen up. Because I originally was considering this morning, if I felt like pulling the green screen's not hard to pull up, but it's just an extra step I have to do. So I originally was like, maybe I'll just put the video camera up of, like, myself crocheting with the plushies and stuff. But I was like, then I found this kind of cool Victorian background, and I was like, you know what, I like this. It's kind of, I like it when I do my crochet videos, and you can see a cool, like, cozy background in the background. That sentence didn't really make sense. But, I like those, and, like, the recordings are nice when they do stuff like that. And so, that's why I'm like, I'm gonna put the green screen up then. So I'm kind of glad I did that in hindsight, because, you know, this would be even more awkward if I just didn't have, like, the camera at all. Like, you would just be seeing a pink background then, if I hadn't pulled the green screen up. Because at least we got that much. Also just like the Victorian vibes. Victorian England is an interesting time period, kind of also like Industrial Revolution America, or even 1920s America. Like, there were definitely a lot of, like, times in history that were just kind of an era to behold. Like, they were really, like, I remember when I briefly mentioned Black Butler before I started reading the manga. I haven't done anything more with it yet, just because I haven't bought the second book. Um, I like having books. My sister's like, you can read it all on webtoons and stuff like that. I'm like, I know, but I like holding a book. I like seeing how much progress I have until the end of the thing. So I like the feeling of pages. But, I, like, remember thinking, being like, there's something special about Victorian England. Like, that really lends itself well to, like, mystery and murder. I mean, it is like the Jack the Ripper time, but like a lot of the things that you can get a lot of intrigue. I think that's why like Sherlock Holmes was always such a big thing. Like there's something about the intrigue, the status of the time, or why you see like vampires and Dracula, and usually in Victorian England. There's something about the status of the time, of like all the protocol and manners and stuff like that, that creates a unique loophole for like horrible things to happen, because it's all about looking good and pretending that you're the best, and like the height of power and stuff like that. But that also means like it was also a time of like, in 1920s America is like this as well, where like everything looks big and flashy and beautiful, but like how much is horrible things are happening beneath the surface at the time that you just can't quite see, and like which is the great place for things like serial killers to show up for. In the case of Black Butler, like you have like a demon who's hiding in plain sight, but no one's noticing because one, it's Victorian England, and no one's going to have the gall to go and accuse someone of something so blatantly. But even on top of that, it's kind of like the other reason why no one notices is because it's like, oh yes, we assume if someone's just supernaturally good at something, like, oh well, they're just good at it then. And, well, the other thing that I think is funny, at least in the first issue of the Black Butler manga, is the fact like, why does no one notice that he has like a literal demon doing stuff, like being like doing all these things for him, and doing things that seem like they should be impossible, but no one questions it? Because all the other house staff is completely incompetent. So it's like having like, ironically enough, the reason no one notices that like they're like the head of the house staff is supernaturally good at everything is because the rest of the house staff is so incredibly horrible at everything that they're just like, oh, well, yeah, that's the only way this house could stand. It's like, it's not that guy's really good, it's the fact that everyone else is really bad. So he just looks good by comparison. And, it's kind of a funny thing, I think. And also, it's just kind of a funny household to begin with, because again, like the person who's like technically like the head of the household and the family is like a 12-year-old boy. So a lot of kind of suspension of disbelief things going on in the first place. But I kind of that's why I thought it was funny when I read it for the first time. I'm like, again, dark, very gothic looking. You got the Victorian England murder mystery vibes going on here, but there's surprising amount of just kind of witty humor to it, where it's just kind of like, the only reason no one figures anything out is because everyone else is just too polite to say anything about it. And I kind of feel that way when sometimes when I'm like looking at like Genshin, and like you have all these gods hiding in plain sight, and like the reasons for some of them are the reason for like the first region where like why they don't notice their god is like literally standing right there is because like, oh well, it couldn't be you because we imagine our god to be something higher than that, even though you're the one who keeps saying blatantly, I am the god. And everyone's like, oh yeah, sure, whatever, go back to the bar. You're drunk again. And like they just have this higher opinion of what the god will be, so that like if they saw it in plain outfit, they'd be like, oh yeah, it's not you. And then the funny thing is, in the second region, like the Earth region, is like no one suspects again, the guy who's walking around with knowledge that is well beyond that of like a normal 25-year-old man. He's like speaking like he's 60 or 80 or 300, And even then people are just like, oh yeah, he's just a strange guy. But he's very knowledgeable because they also have that same sort of idea of like etiquette and stuff like that. Like, oh, a fine respectable man like that, he's a little strange, but he's he seems like a well enough man. He dresses well and he speaks politely and stuff like that, so no one ever suspects it. The characters do, but they're also kind of like, there are like a number of characters who are like, oh yeah, he's definitely not a human. They weren't suspecting he's the god, but like they have a race there that is like, that can live for hundreds of years. So people do suspect he's not human, but no one suspects he's their god, just because they're like, oh well, yeah, that guy. but no one's ever going to bring up the bring it up because again they're kind of like proper etiquette and stuff like that. Because that one's based on like Chinese culture, I believe. So there's kind of like, you know, there's certain like rules and manners and stuff like that. So no one's gonna just accuse them of that. But a lot of people are kind of thinking behind their hands, behind their folded fans and stuff like that, and being like, yeah, that guy's not normal. And then like in the other regions, they're just like straight up being like, yeah, we know who our god is, and she's trying to kill us. And we're just like, great, wonderful. Yeah, that's the other thing I was working on the last few days is my Genshin playthrough. I'm trying to push forward and like record more content for my other Genshin account. And once I catch up to the point where I am in my current account, aka before the final boss of the first area, then I'll play that on stream. Because I'm hoping if I play with other people, then the story won't frustrate me as much. Because I'll at least have other people to talk to about it. But also because I genuinely don't entirely remember why we're fighting the dragon in the first place. Man, it's bothering me that my color changes are all weird. Whatever. That's why I have issues with stripes. My color changes always look a little strange. Can't see it right now, but I have like this kind of like stair-steppy checkerboard pattern on some areas. And that is bothersome. Okay, let me switch my yarns out here. I know how that one always gets so tight. The first loop will be loose, but then my second loop's always really tight, so it's hard to get my hook through it when I'm changing yarns out. So I've been trying a new color. There's like so many videos online that like, here's how you have a straighter color change when you're doing like patterns and stuff. And I'm like, I'll try them out, but I'll be like, nope, still looks crooked. So either this method doesn't work or I'm just bad at color changing because I can never get my color changes to be quite straight. That and like, for instance, when I made my Godzilla, like everyone who I showed him to, everyone was like, oh, that looks great. But like his belly pattern was crooked, so that meant when I had to sew on his arms and legs, or when my mom did at least, I pinned them on. It meant that he wasn't standing straight. He looked like he was like slightly crooked and off to the side, which, you know, everyone I showed the thing to was like, oh, that looks cool because it looks like he's like stomping forward. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I kind of guess he does look cute in that regards. But it was also like, I don't know why. I followed the pattern to the letter. I don't know why my belly patterns always, like, whenever I do, like, a belly pattern or any sort of, like, striping or, like, markings that require me to color change, it always leans to the left. And I don't know if that means I pull more tension in one side, in, like, one hand than the other, or it's because I'm, you know, right-handed or whatever, but it always leans slightly to the side. And if I'm not consciously aware of it and always, like, you know, sometimes it's, like, if I'm doing, like, a marking on, for instance, like one of my little Freddies, I've done that pattern enough that I'm aware of it enough to be like, okay, this pattern's starting to lean. Let me add or subtract a stitch somewhere so that the pattern doesn't keep leaning to the left. But sometimes I'll stop and look at it after I'm done with it and be like, how did this thing lean so far to the side? What the heck, man? So, I'm guessing it's kind of like one of those things that, like, you know, I know all the basics and stuff about crochet, but there's still things that I'm just kind of looking at and being like, I'm sure that will work itself out eventually, or I'll figure out how to do that better eventually, but for right now, it's just I have to deal with, yep, this is just gonna be crooked, and we're just gonna live with it. Which reminds me, I do have some things I want to post on my Instagram for, yeah. I realized one of my, like, the one that I showed on here, my little angel guardian, the guy with the big ears, he's very plush and stuff like that. I don't think I'll ever sell him because I think he's just so incredibly cute. If I did sell him, I would sell him for like probably $100. Just because I love him so much and he took so much effort to make. And also the yarn he's from is not the easiest stuff to use. It's not as hard as like fur yarn, but it's very thick and dense, so it takes a bit of manpower. Kind of like also though when I'm doing fur yarn and my hands just start cramping up after a while because how tightly I have to pull it is a little hard at sometimes, so. Let's see here. probably after I finish this one. Where are we at in the recording? Yeah, I'll probably finish this row here because now we're at about 2 hours. I like to have my streams always be around 2 hours or so, at minimum. Because 1 hour, you're like, why did you even bother? But like 2 hours is a fair amount, and then I can go and get some lunch and start prepping for my D&D game. But and again, the camera's out. I got to look at the stuff and figure something out. And maybe my computer needs updates. Who knows? But we almost got into a bit of discussion there. I started talking about, like, you know, the 5-man band trope and some stuff with Voltron and Ruby. We'll have to leave that discussion for another time. I know, I need to stop complaining about it. Sorry, I hyperfixate on things. And because I have that whole thing about, like, you know, you ever had where you're like, you'll say something stupid in a conversation, and then you'll go over, like, you'll say a dozen other things, and that person might compliment you like 20 times, but the only thing you're going to remember at the end of the conversation is that one stupid thing you said. And the other person probably forgot about it and will never think of it again, but you'll be there late at night and be like, that one dumb thing I said, and I'm never going to live it down, I'm going to remember this for the next 10 years of my life. That's literally how I am sometimes, where I'm just like, something goes wrong, and they'll usually have to be my sister, will have to be like, okay, you need to stop bringing it up. I'm like, I know. But my brain's fixating on it, and it just keeps telling me to focus on it, so. My brain right now is just constantly reminding me about how the camera is not working, and I'm like, I know I need to stop bringing it up. That's not helping anyone, and everyone's very aware of it at this point, but my brain's just like, no, you need to keep thinking about this. You need to think about this, because this is clearly the worst thing you've ever done. And I'm like, it's not realistically is, but when have brains ever been realistic and, like, you know, actually worked logically? As they're actually intended to do. I'm gonna tie off this yarn. And I do appreciate you, DZ and Ixie, lurking in the background. Appreciate you guys being here. Even through the weirdness and tech difficulties and, you know, me ranting and stuff. Appreciate having people to talk and listen to. That's why we do these things. That's why we do the crochet streams, even while I'm doing video games and stuff like that. Because sometimes I just like having someone to talk to and just talk about whatever comes to my brain. Because when I do video games, anyone who like may have showed up recently for the other games, like, I tend to focus on whatever game I'm playing. So I don't chat as freely. I could be relaxing. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. When I play video games, I don't talk as freely because usually I'm either talking about whatever I'm playing or my thought process of what I'm doing. So I don't chat as freely about whatever comes to my brain. When I'm crocheting, I can do that. I remember I had one of my friends, the one that I do the market booth with. She's popped on here once or twice. Like, she's like, I don't know how you can, like, have a full conversation while you're crocheting. I'm like, well, if I'm doing something that, like, right now I'm just doing rows, so it means I don't have to count, I don't have to alternate my pattern, I'm just crocheting all the way around until I hit my stitch marker. Then I actually can, like, yeah, I can maintain a full conversation and pay attention and stuff like that, because at this point my hands are just kind of automatically doing what they're doing while it's kind of like a fidget toy in a way. I can talk and I can do whatever while my hands do this. I can watch TV. That's why apparently the mark of a true crocheter, or at least, is because that's the thing that they all talk about online. Like the ones who do like crochet stuff on YouTube, that's what they'll all talk about. Being like, yeah, I can go and I can put this on and I can just mindlessly crochet while I'm watching TV or a TV show or something like that. And I'm like, I have gotten to the point where I can pretty much watch TV while I'm crocheting because, you know, I can feel things out with my fingers. And only when I get to the part of the pattern where I have to like, count and pay attention is that a thing. But even then, it's not too complicated, like just alternating every other one. I just have to glance down every once in a while to make sure that my like finger is still lined up with the hole. But like most of the time when I'm like pulling in the stitches, I'm actually looking for not the hole necessarily. I'm just looking for where my finger is, and when I feel it poke at my finger, I know that's where the hole is at. And then kind of everything else just happens automatically. So, I'm sure everyone has that, like, thing that they can do, like, where they can definitely be, like, doing it at the same time as, whatever else they're doing. This is kind of like a fidget thing. I assume most creative people / most gamers are, like, have some sort of neurodivergency. Most of the time ADHD, because we crave the stimulation, but, like, most people I assume have some sort of neurodivergency where they're just, like, they need something that, to kind of fulfill that twitchy energy. I always had that as a kid. I remember my grandma would always go and tell me, he's like, why can't you sit still? And I'm like, I never had an answer back then. But now it makes sense. I'm like, oh, because my body needs stimulation, so it literally doesn't want to be still. It's trying to get rid of the excess energy. That's why, like, they talk a lot about, like, stimming and stuff like that as an autistic thing. It's also going to be an ADHD thing, but it's also very strongly associated with autistic things. And people more openly stim stuff like that when you, like, get an earlier diagnosis and they know what it is. But, like, in growing up and then getting a diagnosis later as an adult, you realize that you do still stim and stuff like that. You just found smaller, less noticeable ways to do it. In my case, I shake my leg a lot, like, Or, sometimes I'll notice things like, I might play with my hair, I might touch my throat, stuff like that. That'll be little, like, subtle things. I could be doing it right now, but you can't see me. Aha. But I sometimes just, like, when I let my it's also kind of the reason, like, how you can always get your ideas when you're driving on the way home, or, like, you're in the shower. Your body is focusing on something else, so mentally your body can go other places. So, like, while physically my hands are focusing on this potion bottle I'm working on, mentally my brain can go anywhere because it doesn't have to put in the actual active focus to making this. I remember my art, the advantages of Menominee. I know right now I could have done anything right now. I could have taken my shirt off. You wouldn't know. That'd be funny though if I actually did literally do that and my camera just suddenly came on. That would be, like, the funniest thing ever. I've not moved at all. I probably look the same as my Frozen camera does right now. Wouldn't that be funny, though? That would give me some attention on the internet, for sure. But I'd have to take my cloak off first, and that would be too much effort. Also, it's not that part of Twitch. There are people who do that on Twitch, and I'm not that part of Twitch. That's why I think it's unfortunate sometimes. Is that when you're, like, a female gamer or something like that, it's not too bad, but that's why I sometimes have trouble saying, like, I'm a female gamer or something like that. Because usually when people do that, think about people that are more along the lines of, like, where my sister is, where they have, like, they're dressed up pretty nice, they got makeup on and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm in here, I might have combed my hair, and I'm usually in a baggy sweatshirt. Because I want to be cozy, I don't want to put a lot of effort into this. I'm here for the vibes, to hang out, to chat, but I'm not here to necessarily look pretty in front of the camera. It'd be nice if I did that, and I usually do try and make sure I have, like, a presentable sweatshirt on, but I'm like, I'm cold, I want something soft. I'm gonna just, I got very many plushies around me, Oh man, that's weird. I've seen girls on the Twitch who have a cam under a transparent chair. Yeah, I've seen some of those videos. They're usually on those, like, I don't know if they're Chinese, Japanese, Korean, or whatever, but just, like, some of the more Asian leading countries that have a transparent chair. I've seen those before on, like, game shows and stuff. Just to, like, yeah, just to be like, they're wearing stuff, but, like, so you can see, like, their butt or something like that. I've seen game shows like that. The amount of things you see sometimes, because you're just, like, like, back in the days, like, when we were first moving into California, we didn't have a house yet, and we had an apartment, so we only had, like, the 5 cable channels, and one of them is, like, this random, like, questionable channel from Japan or China or something like that. where you can't, where, you know, like, it has the subtitles in English, but, like, they'll show them, like, again, the wacky game show things they'll do. And I've seen before, they have, like, transparent chairs and, like, girls sitting on them, and do they realize that someone is filming their butt right now? And I'm just like, I don't even want to question who's watching this, because, yeah, they wouldn't be airing it if there wasn't an audience for it, but that honestly disturbs me more, the fact that there is an audience for it. Hey, I can't get much more down to earth than I am, honestly. Like I said, I do, sometimes envy my sister's ability to, like, you know, play kind of different characters, to do different voices, especially when we're trying to voice act stuff on video games. But yeah, I only know how to be me. That's why I feel a little bad sometimes when I'm DMing and I can only do, like, one voice. Because I'm like, I really don't know how to be anyone but me. Like, and I'll get comments from my, like, my family be like, you know, you be you. And I'm like, well, this is all I got. I only know how to be me. Can't be anyone else. So I'm not sure that quite qualifies as down to earth, but I kind of just say it how it is. You could also say this is my opportunity to not be not mask and stuff like that, and just say whatever comes to my mind without worrying about filters and politeness and stuff. That's why, like, friends who, like, get to actually know me a bit better are like, I'll be quiet and usually more, like, polite and stuff like that. I don't necessarily become less polite when I get to know someone better. It's more like I'm less afraid to be sarcastic and witty like I typically am. Because I hope that whoever I'm hanging out with understands that that's just me. That's how I roll. Nothing crazy going on. That's just how I do me. Alright. I don't remember which row I'm on. That's fun too. I'm not a fan of the streamers that fake their personality to be provocative and lure more viewers. Yeah, I agree. I like people who seem to be genuine. I also understand that I'm very deadpan, so that might not be necessarily entertaining to people. And I'm not interested in changing that. That's also why I like when I can stream with Madeline, because I think my personality bounces better off of someone like her, who has a more reactive personality. Like I said, I'm the straight man to, like, the jokes. So it helps when I have someone there to tell the jokes, and I can be the reactive, straight person to that. So sometimes, that's why it took me a while to actually get to the point where I wanted to, like, try and crochet stream by myself, and then eventually video game stream by myself. Is because I always had the idea of, like, well, I'm usually with my sister, and that's who I have my fun dynamic with, and that's what makes us funny, is, like, the two of us kind of, like, going off of each other. Or, like, when we did the one, I still look at that one clip Ixie cut out of Madeline reacting while she was playing FNAF. Is like, I'm being there doing calm, just crocheting and stuff, and Madeline's next to me freaking out about playing Five Nights at Freddy's. That's why I'm working on her. She's tired usually after work, or she has other things she wants to work on when she has her free time, like her paintings. But I'm like, I'm trying to get to the point where she'll come and play video games again, because I'm like, honestly, I really like when she plays things and reacts to things, and then I can comment from the side. Because, again, when I'm playing video games, my focus is usually on the game, so I'm not necessarily as freely chatting. But if, you know, someone else is playing the game, then I have a lot more freedom to just chat. And my thread's fraying again, and gosh, I hate these 4-way threads. You pull half the thread through the knot, and then, like, it decides to fray and pull apart, and then you're like, okay, so I got half the string through the knot, and the other half is just sticking out weird and awkwardly. It's like, why does it do this? This is why I don't like working with 4-way thread. And honestly, I don't need to be tying off these ends each time. I could leave them loose, but I'm always concerned that if I leave the loose ends, that something somewhere will happen where it'll catch and it'll pull the string out, because it's happened to me before, and come on, pull through. It's annoying. Anyway. This person's never going to stick their hand inside the bag and probably catch these by accident, but I'm just concerned about stuff falling off, so. I can be silly about work. I'm more of a straight man because of how crazy my coworkers is. Yeah, I think that's also another thing is that people's personality also does change a little bit depending on their surroundings. For instance, I'm not a natural leader person, but like if no one else is taking charge and we need to get something done and my neck's on the line, then I take charge just because I want things to get done. I hate beating around the bush and being like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Should we go for it? I'm like, we have an hour to do this, and I need to get a grade out of it, so I will take charge just because I want things to happen. And I want to push forward. So I'm not a natural leader necessarily, but I'm also someone who is very afraid of running out of time, so I will push forward if no one else is pushing. It's also kind of like, I think that it's also kind of like people are that way a lot when it comes to care and self-care, is that like, most people have trouble with self-care, but a lot of people are much better at like giving advice to other people, so sometimes you have to go and turn around and be like, hey, I just gave this advice to someone else, and I was very supportive and stuff, but I can't do that for myself. Or, like, you'll struggle to do something for yourself. Like, in my case, it's like, streaming, recording stuff. It's hard to do for me, but when I know there's someone out there waiting to watch me, or wants to come and hang out and chat with me, then I'll push myself to do it to make it work. Because I'm like, there's someone out there waiting on me. There's someone out there depending on me. I think that works works that way though for most creatives. It's like, if there's someone out there waiting for you, even if it's just one person who wants to see your stuff and appreciates what you make, then you're willing to do it for that person. But man, why can't we just do that for ourselves? Why can't you just like go and be like, I want to do this for me? That's my, if you want, New Year's resolution for this year, is just trying to make a thing because I want to do it. My first step in doing that was like on New Year's or the day before New Year's or wherever it's at, is I did my react to all the Genshin Impact character demos. I don't think a single person asked for that. I don't think even when I brought up the idea that anyone was that particularly interested in my chat. But I'm like, you know what? I want to do this for me. This yarn is fraying apart and it's driving me nuts. Because it keeps catching on my hook and I'm just like, will you stop doing that? Stupid forward weight yarn. But like, I did the Genshin Impact React thing just because no one asked for it, and certainly no one else needs it necessarily. But I wanted to do that because I wanted to do a reaction. I've never done reaction things. I thought it'd be cool to do a reaction marathon and then to do a ranking video. I love doing ranking videos, just they don't typically do very well. At least not in a streaming format, because really I feel like in order to do a proper ranking video, you really need someone else's opinion to bounce off of, so you either need a very active chat, or in my case, I usually try and rope my sister into reacting as well. I also knew that this was like, that particular project was something she would not be interested in doing. She just kind of like has a passing interest in like the stuff like Genshin Impact and just like likes to hear it from me, but she's not really that interested in learning it much about it herself. My hook would stop catching on this yarn. That'd be great right now. But like, I did it for me because I really wanted to. And I thought it'd be a fun thing to do a ranking video, to do a reaction video, and then the idea is I want to eventually, I haven't done it yet, but the idea is that eventually I want to get to the point where I can, edit it down and then upload it on YouTube as a proper video. Which, honestly still kind of scares me a little bit to get into that, but I'm trying not to be as scared this year. So, try not to fear failures too much, even though kind of something that I keep constantly running into anyway. Such is life. But that was my first step into that kind of New Year's resolution. I'm like, I'm doing this. I don't know if anyone was particularly there. I don't even think there were a lot of people really watching that when I did it. And because, reaction things and ranking things really do well, like I said, if you have another person there or if you have an active chat watching you to kind of also give their feedback. Same thing with Nuzlocke. It does help to have someone there to, like, at the very least, react to when like, your Pokemon dies or give you name suggestions for your Pokemon, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, if I keep waiting constantly for the perfect ideal conditions, if I keep waiting constantly for, the right amount of people to show up, for people to actually show interest, for, like, my co-host to actually want to do it with me, then I'm never going to do stuff. And that's a lot of things that, like, when you're going to be like, how to become a Twitch streamer in 2024 or whatever, they'll be like, be ready and aware for the fact that you're probably going to be streaming to no one in the beginning. Or, like, you have at most five followers for like the first year or so. I just get used to them. Like, honestly, if I can get one person, I'm happy with that. You know, I just have people lurking in the background and just listening to me ramble on. I'm like, there's people who enjoy that. I can live with that. But yeah, so doing the Genshin Impact React video was a kind of a big thing for me. I had a slightly different layout. I was using headphones for the first time, which was definitely a different experience. I didn't realize how much those can hurt my ears over time. If I did that again, I'd get more comfortable headphones because I'm a sensory person, and that just kind of hurt my ears after a while. But and also if I did that again, I'm repeating myself now. You know, that's how I'm getting jittery. But I went and did it like how I've seen on YouTube with the idea of like, oh, these other people sit through these for like 3 hours. And like, yeah, in hindsight, those people probably spliced them together. They probably didn't literally sit for 3 hours to do this. And that's why I learned on stream was I'm like, wow, I've already done this for 3 hours and I'm only halfway through the videos. This is a much bigger undertaking than I realized. I did not account for the fact that maybe, just maybe, trying to watch 77 videos in a row could be a little overstimulating. So I only got through the first 35 the first night because I was just like, wow, this is such a bigger undertaking than I thought. And also because I was doing it in the evening because I was hoping like a lot more people can watch me in the evening than can in the morning. So I was like, I'll do it in the evening so more people can see me. And then I was like, but I'm also exhausted in the evening. Oops, didn't realize that. So like when I do the follow-up, which is like I would love to do a follow-up sort of thing where I watch all the Star Rail trailers. Because I love a lot of the Star Rail trailers. I've already watched a good amount of them. Not all of them actually. Probably maybe only a third or maybe half. But like I like a lot of Star Rail trailers, so I'd also like to do a similar ranking and watching, reacting sort of things. But I'm like, if I did that, I don't think they have nearly as many trailers as Genshin does. I still probably do it in 2 sittings though, because honestly just watching that many videos in a row and then talking about them, my mouth just got dry, my throat got sore, I just got kind of overstimulated from wearing the headphones for so long, and it was a long marathon sort of thing. So I'm like, could I do that again, which I will eventually. I'd love to do more reactions. Okay, my stupid hook will stop catching these. I love to do more reactions, more just, you know, talking through something, because that's the other thing, like I have all these like interests I have that I want other people to like talk to me about, so I'm like, well, I can't find anyone else who's interested in this thing, I'll just force them to watch it with me and then they'll talk to me about it. Perfect. That was honestly kind of my method of trying to make friends for the majority of middle school and high school, which is like, if I just, and even a little bit of elementary school, where I'm just like, if I just talk to them about it and try and show them how awesome it is, then they'll want to talk to me back about it. Or they'll never speak to me again. One or the other. You can imagine which one happened more often. But, turns out when you start randomly expositing knowledge about a particular special interest of yours and you just talk a lot, people tend to walk away and then avoid you. That's why, like, I try not to be too bad when people come up and do that to me, like at cons and stuff like that, because I'm like, yes, I know, I'm this person sometimes, so let me be patient. Anyway, I think I need one more row. I'm just gonna finish this part of my bottle off. So I was supposed to do 10 rows. I'm at row 9, actually, now that I'm ready to pause, and I'm like, well, at this point, I might as well just finish the last row. Call it. Anyway, and then we'll do it after this. But yeah, so we have just trying to do some more stuff, and like I said, if I can get better with the software, I want to maybe try and figure out how to do OBS Studios. I have worked with OBS in the past, so I'm more confident about doing that than I am with Streamlabs right now. With Streamlabs, I'm kind of using as a necessary evil to get the software I'm using for my Nuzlocke run. I don't really like the software. It feels kind of oddly limiting. Like, the view of it is just kind of... It's so zoomed in, and I just want to zoom out, and it won't let me zoom out. I'm like, I feel way too close to this, yet at the same time I can't see anything, because it's not zoomed in enough. It has all these panels, and just... I don't really care for how Streamlabs works. maybe, again, it might just be because this is new software. I really don't know how it works yet, but I like to work more with OBS Studio. Maybe figure out some more editing stuff. I worked with Premiere in the past. Problem is that, like, kind of I have to, like, unlearn some things because, like, when I used to use Premiere and other things, I used them for my job, which was very boring. I had to edit and do stuff with video webinars, which wasn't necessarily bad. It was educational webinars. Not to mention that you finish with the project, be like, oh, okay, we're good, can we post? And then I have to go through, like, another 2 weeks of people, finding, like, the tiniest, and I mean the tiniest problem with my webinar and be like, can you fix this? And then I have to go and re-export the whole dang thing again because that one problem was there. And I'm like, can't you guys find all these problems at the same time so I don't have to export this thing 15 times? Do you know how big it is? We're talking a 45-minute webinar. That takes a while to export. You know? Such is the nature of an editor. I like being an editor, honestly. I always like being an editor because I'd be like, if I'm doing my job right, it means that you never noticed I was there. I changed the thing before you even recognized it. And I like having a direction and people being like, okay, can you change this and make it happen? And I'll be like, yes, let me try and do that. It's just when you have it where you're like, there's like, you know, you'll be like, okay, did we have all the edits changed on this? And they'll be like, yes. I'm like, okay, ready to export. I'm about to post it now. And then someone in the background be like, oh, wait, sorry, I didn't see your email. I actually have 5 problems with this. And you'll be like, my mind was ready to take that post-it note off the fridge to move on to a new project, and now I have to open it again because you didn't check your email. Thanks. Yeah, I'm the one who gets essentially fired over the fact that I don't check my emails enough or I don't communicate enough. I'm like, sure, why not? Not as if whenever I communicate with my the rest of my creative team and they take forever to respond. But yeah, because I'm the person with the executive functioning issues, and therefore makes it very hard for me to communicate with people sometimes. I do try my best, but, you know, some things are just like, I wish, that's why, like, I try also when I'm, like, I found some of them, like, there were some people who I met at the con who, like, you know, clearly are a lot of neurodivergent folks there, and my sister, like, gave them my Twitch to be like, hey, come watch it, my sister's autistic, she goes and crochet stuff, and I'm like, honestly, on one hand, I don't necessarily like to, like, it feels like bragging when I constantly point out, like, what sort of, mental disabilities I got. Especially because I got them so recently. Well, I've always had them. I got the diagnosis within the last, like, 3 years. And on one hand, it feels strange to kind of constantly do that, because then, like, I've never been much for labels. It's why I don't like calling people by, like, a skin color or something like that, because I use it purely as a way to designate, like, that apple's red, that blueberry's blue, that person is white, that person is black, that person is Asian. I'm using it kind of like a descriptor. I'm never, like, attaching anything more with it. But even then, I don't really care for doing that, just because I'm like, labels never say very much about a person, so it always kind of feels weird to use them, because you're like, I'm saying this in a purely descriptive term, but so many people will take it as more than that. Like, if you go and call someone that, like, I've never had this personally, but, like, you know, you could call someone black, and they'll be like, no, I prefer to be called African American. I'm like, that's fair, but I'm like, I was not using it as terms of, like, your race and stuff like that. I'm using it as a descriptor of, like, well, that's how I can tell you apart. Same thing that I said, that blonde lady over there. She's blonde. That's how you're telling her apart from everyone else. You know? So it's always kind of, like, using labels to be like, hey, I'm an autistic ADHD streamer, you know? I don't like saying that because I feel like I don't like, you know, like some people go and be like, I'm a person with autism as opposed to I'm autistic. Be like, I am a person first who happens to also have this thing. You know? It's part of my character skill tree, but it is not the name of my character, you know? But at the same time, I also feel the need to do that because now that I have essentially the diagnosis and stuff, and I can say it with confidence that I have this thing, I don't say necessarily to go and, like, be like, this is my excuse as to why I have this issue, but it's also kind of this one thing where I'm like, I have this thing, and I hope that you will be patient with me because of it, you know? You will understand that I'm doing my best, and I need grace sometimes. That I forgot a thing, it probably wasn't because I literally forgot a thing, it's probably because my head's buzzing so much I couldn't focus on it. Or I overthought about it so much that I could not get started on it, you know? I'm seeing a doctor in a couple days for how well I've been doing with my ADHD stuff I've been taking. And I'm like, I honestly have not felt really any different, so I'm like, either it is working or it's doing absolutely nothing. So I'm like, I'm not sure what to tell her, because I'm like, well, I mean, I haven't felt any different. I haven't certainly felt any worse, but I don't know if I've felt necessarily any better. So I'm not sure exactly how that meeting's gonna go down, but, you know, every step in the health process is literally just throwing something at a dartboard, seeing if it works. If it does, great. If it doesn't, well, let's try something else then, I guess. But I like, you know, that's why, like, now I have the diagnosis, I like to sometimes say, yes, I'm an autistic individual. I'm like, I'm, stage 1 of the spectrum, essentially, but, so I'm, yeah, any way you try and say it, high functioning, less severe, stuff like that, it always just sounds weird, so I just say, I'm just stage 1 on the spectrum. I manage, but I still have issues. I've also, grown up most of my life without knowing I'm this thing, so I also kind of, at this point, it's kind of like unpacking things and realizing, like, oh, how I'm, like, one way you mourn because you're like, I used to be so much better now, but then you, like, look back and be like, no, I actually was always suffering, but I was just masking so intensely strongly that I managed to do those things, and by pulling the mask down and now trying to figure out who I am outside of that is a whole nother, can of worms, but it's gotta happen. But I like mentioning it to just be like, hey, like, I am just one example of it online, mind you, but don't be, like, if you're curious, if you're questioning, I'm no psychiatrist, but, like, I never even questioned I might have anything, because for the longest time, I had male cousins that had ADHD. I saw, like, autism as something like Rain Man, where it had to be only the most severe version of it. So I assumed I couldn't have anything like that because I didn't have the severe version of it. And then I'm like, no, actually, this whole time, I actually was very obvious. That's why I like looking at, like, someone like Jacksepticeye, who's actually, creative and successful and has his own personality. And then you're like, he also has, he's also ADHD, he also has autism. And it's like, yeah, it's another part of you. But also, like, don't be afraid to look at that, because you don't look like the most severe case, because a lot of people are not the most severe case, but they still do need those, that just support system. My support system is, like, having people to talk to, that people don't mind if I, like, might be in the same room, but I'm not looking at you. I might be looking at my phone or something else, like, gosh, that stitch looks like a mess. I might be in the room, but I'm just not speaking directly to you. That's not because I'm not interested in what you're saying, just I don't want to make eye contact right now. I can be really bad with eye contact sometimes, let me tell you. Last few days, I've definitely felt it, where, like, I'm looking every other direction, but at the person, my mom says I'm really bad that when I go to the doctor, how I'm, like, never looking at her, and I'm like, yeah. Originally, I would fight that more and be like, let me try and look them in the eye, because I know that eye contact is important for people to know you're listening. But now that that's probably the biggest thing that after I got a diagnosis I feel less guilty about, is, like, not looking people in the eye, because I'm like, yeah, I never really kind of acknowledged how much this made me uncomfortable before, but this really makes me uncomfortable. I really don't like looking at people directly. I feel like my thoughts just kind of freeze up when I'm making eye contact sometimes. Okay. Well, that's as far as I'm getting on that potion bottle for now. It's nearly done with the base of it, at least. The color part of it. So, and my back's starting to hurt. So I think that's where we're going to end for now. And, the camera's been out for like an hour or so at this point. But, I'm going to go get some lunch. I'm going to get ready for my D&D tonight. And then I'm going to finish this potion bottle. When will I be here next? Strong chance for Saturday, depending on how the weather goes and how burnt out I am after D&D. I love D&D, but it always is incredible, like, social toll on me, so I'm usually very exhausted afterwards. I do it for my friends, because I love doing it, but, it does... I'm aware that it tires me out. So, probably Saturday at some point, we might just do another crochet stream. Unless I can't get the camera working, then in that case we'll work on the Nuzlocke, because I can at the very least know I have it working on my computer. Figure out what the heck's wrong with my current computer that we're running it on, so at the very least I can get it on my laptop. But so expect maybe a Thursday stream. Keep an eye on your notifications. Again, just putting it out there. Our YouTube channels, Cozy Gamers, where all our past live streams are there. If you ever want to watch those, because I know Twitch deletes them regularly on this channel, but if you ever want to watch any of our past streams, any of the past playthroughs we've done, those will be on our YouTube channel. And then I obviously have my, we don't have Instagram for Cozy Gamers, but I do have my Instagram, Dusk Crochet, if you're ever curious about what I'm making. I try and post it about weekly or so. That's about how fast I'm crocheting right now. It's a little inactive at the moment just because I'm tired of my market. So, but we also have stuff there. Or Dusk Drops is our store where we sell all the stuff that I make and my sister makes and all the other fun stuff. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for chatting with me. I appreciate all the people in the chat and the lurkers and all the other people anywhere. So I will see you guys next time, hopefully with a working camera.